You're watching Wartscenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wartscenter, episode 20. And it's a very, very special episode because this is it. Well, for regular season, this is it. This is the final week of regular season. After this, we'll know who's in playoffs and who's looking to hoist the NKBBL trophy in just a few weeks. Joined today, I'm with Dimitri Lund and Tanaka. Koba is still out on his bender, but how are you two doing?
I'm pretty good.
Yep, it's been a good week. We coming off of another exciting week of NKBBL action, and it's coming down to the wire. I think closer than it's ever been here in our 5th season.
Yes, and we'll obviously talk about that. Playoff implications are still high, and also I forgot to mention in the run-up, it's rivalry week. Rivalry week.
Rivalry week.
God, that's staying in. It's rivalry week, which is way cooler than it just sounded. Because we're gonna talk about these rivals going up against each other and kind of the history between each rivalry. So anyway, let's talk about week 9, because oh boy, what a week. The Newport Brainwave Blitzers have a blood division stunner as they shut out the New England Matriarchs. It's the first shutout the Matriarchs have seen this season, and the first loss they've taken, so very unexpected there. The Antecan Kings tie the Los Alamos Aliens 1-1, so they still find themselves in a position to possibly make playoffs. The Rothleach and Rampage and the Wildwood EU tie. Coming from Wildwood, we're not surprised there, but they come off as a 1-1 bout. The Slam Diego Charges get it done. They become the Bowl Division champions with a 3-0 victory over the Caesars Legion. And the SCLSU Mudclaws defeat the Orlando Orcas 2-1. And then lastly, in a stunner, the Guttersburg Rebels tie the Vermin Skulkers 1-1 in a surprisingly close match. Anything to shout out about week 9 matches, fellas?
The only thing that sticks out to me on this board right here is the only non-surprise is the Bowl Division champion. All these other matches are just surprising in some way or another.
Yeah.
This has been a nutty week. Every week just keeps topping itself. So I'm excited for next week too. This is wild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of close games in this one, and a couple blowouts. Obviously, like the Brainwave Blitzers. I think there was a pretty split room on whether or not the Blitzers had a chance against the Matriarchs, and we've talked about the Blitzers being an up and down team, and this is one of those hot weeks, and they absolutely pop off on the division leader. And a lot of credit to our, lower end teams, our rookie teams as well. We see the Kings taking the Aliens blow for blow, even though no casualties drop in that game, a 1-1 tie. The Orcas are figuring out how to carry the ball as well, as they definitely made the Mudclaws work for it at moments in that game. But I think the big shock, obviously, is the Rebels holding the Skulkers to just 1 touchdown. We've been looking forward to potential MVP Longshank Stilltail finally breaking that touchdown record, and he still hasn't done it.
Yeah, he got 1 catch. That's all he tallied week 9. Also, I did want to ask Tanaka and Tech and Los Alamos. There were 2 events on the entire screen. What was that match? And they were both second half touchdowns, correct?
Yeah. So we could go into. I'll try to keep it brief. So that first half defensively, the Los Alamos held them to no score, but the second half was absolute chaos.
I see.
The kickoff event, blitz, Tomb Kings are able to move in quickly. Morpheus manages to fumble the ball, has to burn a reroll immediately just to try and pick the ball up and go away. Just stuns the ground. No casualties, just stuns and maybe a KO or 2, but no full removals. And at some point, the ball gets popped out, goes to the sideline, and it basically lands right in the end zone of Los Alamos. And all the Kings had to do was do a 4-up and a rush and score. And they managed to do that. By turn 12, neither team had any rerolls left.
Oh my gosh.
So the entire last 4 turns of the game was all in Nuffle's hands. So it was nutty. It was really rough and dirty, but a hell of a match for the Kings. And I'm excited to see how they're going to do this week.
You love to see it. I had to ask because it was probably one of the lowest event games I've ever seen, and you got to scratch your head when you see touchdown, then touchdown, and nothing else. Like what actually happened here?
Every season, I get at least one of those matches. I still remember season 2, the Minutemen and the Helheim Rams. And the only event on that entire game sheet was a single touchdown.
Can't beat that record.
Yeah,
I guess
I don't
unless
think
we get the 0-0-0-0, which hasn't happened yet, I don't think.
Oh, we got close.
If it ever does.
The saddest game in KBBL history. All right. Let's talk about your almost regular season leaders. As we come in, we got one more week before we finalize these regular season statistics, and we move on to playoffs. Player of the week this week was Philip Reavers. Hauled away 2 touchdowns in the win against San Fran and got the MVP. It was just enough to keep him in the number 1 spot this week. As far as SPP, I think we can go ahead and give him his crown. Long Shank Stilltail, 74 SPP, unless Sonya puts up, I don't know, 12 touchdowns. It's not happening. And then just behind him, Morpheus. Sorry, Dimitri, you're going to say something.
Yeah, no, Longshanks actually has, because we use the week-by-week metric of Player of the Week as the regular season MVP, Longshanks actually has clinched the regular season MVP award, so congratulations to the Stalkers for that.
I was going to say, this is probably the first time we're going to see a regular season and likely a league MVP since season 1.
I don't want to make anyone's votes for him, but it looks likely that he's got both clinched. That's for sure.
That's nutty.
But when you have a season like this, it's hard to deny.
Oh yeah.
All right, leaders in touchdowns. No surprise with the gold. Longshank Stilltail, and likely to stay gold for the regular season. Just behind him, Timothy the Voidwalker, and then Sonya the Dancer at 11 and 10, respectively. In terms of passes, Juniper Mammoth sits at 13. Dr. Zayas just behind at 11. He'll have to have a really good week 10 if he wants to come back and take that throne. And then behind him, Morpheus and Trench Venomfang share the bronze. For catches, Timothy the Voidwalker and Longshank Stilltail in a wide receiver battle. One of them or both of them will hoist the best hands trophy after next week. And in silver, Ted Lateness and Gordy II, also in a two-way tie for silver. And then Joaquin Branch back at 5. All right, superb 13 mates. No action last week, so both Sire Reginald and Birchmont Thunderbranch are sitting at 4. They got one more week to dethrone the other. We'll see how it goes down. No changes in the interceptions category. However, we did get a deflection last week. Scotch Claw Shoer almost got a pick. He just couldn't catch it right at the end. So he joins Hawaiian Pizza with the gold. In terms of casualties, Ulrich Doom Ripper is at the top and likely to stay there, but he's got some tight competition as LT, Squeak Spinetail are right at the heels with 8 casualties, and just behind them, Diablo Zod and Terrace the Invoker are sitting at 6. As for fouls, no changes other than the fact that Farmer Fran has gotten himself another foul, so it is likely he will get the golden boot this season. I forget what our actual trophies are called, so I'm making them up. Apologies to the commissioner. And in terms of kills, we had no kills. So Farmer Fran also sits at the top there and very likely will be the most deadly player this year. But anything can happen in week 10. We're not ready to hand over trophies just yet. Okay, team standings going into week 10. Not a lot of changes, even though we had a bunch of divisional matches. We had quite a few ties, as over half the league ended in a draw, which is why we don't see much change here. But the Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers jump over top of the Los Alamos Aliens with their win, as opposed to Los Alamos' tie. So they now find themselves in the number 2 spot. And the Bowl division did not change a bit. Not a lick. As San Fran and Orlando find themselves eliminated, the top 4 has stayed steady. But there is some opportunity for movement here, which we'll talk about when we get to the matchups. All right, we want to talk about brackets. So we don't have a lot to talk about this week, but next week, we're going to really dive in and talk about brackets. The reason that we're going to have to wait is because only one team has clinched. So we know for a fact that the Slam Diego Charges are the bowl division champions. They've got the number 1 seed. However, we know nothing else. There is not a single team that fits in a single position right now because of how tight some of these races are. Yeah, it's crazy. I know for the blood division, all 6 teams are technically alive. So that's something I think we rarely see this late in a year. So, but before we talk about all of those different playoff clinching and seeding scenarios, let's quickly run through all of the teams' updates. So the Antekan Kings, Patella McAfee picks up Frenzy. The Unknown Skeleton, he's becoming a star over there in Antekan, picks up Dirty Player. The team finally picks up their 3rd reroll, so they are ready with a good coaching staff to be more consistent moving forward. No changes for the Guttersburg Rebels. Their next games fall off, so they're going to come in to Week 10 fully healthy, but with no additional skills added on top. The Los Alamos Aliens, Lee Harvey Gobswald picks up Prehensile Tail. So that goblin's mutating all over the place. He's got a tail now. Love to see it from a Chaos Renegade squad. I'm wondering who's going to trip over the goblin now. All right. For the Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers, Lucius Fell Thief picks up Block. And with the firing of Pork Chop, they've picked up Chicken Parm, a Thrall lineman. I know. Tasty. I feel like we need
So good.
Isn't that like a Peyton Manning like Allstate commercial thing? Okay, there we go.
Yes.
We can't actually do anything other than that, or else we'll get in trouble. So there you go. There was a reference. Dedicated fans go up to 3 over their massive win over New England. And New England Matriarchs, they had a lot of fun in the free agent market leading up to the final week. They're going to have to get it done this week without Toxophile the Huntress, as she picks up a niggling injury. And they've picked up 3 unknown linemen, which will be named at the start of Week 10. Their dedicated fans were at the highest at 7, so they do fall to 6 with that recent loss. And the Orlando Orcas picked up a whole host of additional skills. Keats got Armbar, Sakari has Wrestle, Ikaika has Dirty Player, and Corky has Block. However, Ikaika and Corky picked up a niggling injury, so they will be missing for this season finale, but look to use those skills in a potential bowl game moving forward. The Roth, Leech, and Rampage are going to have to find a way into the playoffs this week without Tucker Frump. They have also fired their halfling hopeful, which the name is drawing a blank. I literally just had it and I lost it.
Horace Pringle.
So he's he's off to free agency. I'm sure he will find a worthy squad. But Birchmont Thunderbranch picks up multiple block. Lunk Frumbledunder's got kick. Tad Lateness has jump up. And they welcome Avery Bonk, the dwarf runner, to try to get all the pieces together that they need to make this final push. All right, no changes for the San Fran Caesars Legion, but they do lose Ben, Gordy, and Dr. Zayas. Now that I see that, it looks like Dr. Zayas won't be around to dethrone the passing title. So that's a shame. The injury is going to keep him away from potential greatness, but all things considered, the Silver's not bad. A respectable year, a ton of passes thrown. We'll see if we see him in seasons future, whether we have them or not, but that's another story. For the SCLSU Mudclaws, Captain Insano picks up guard, and they lose Roberto Boucher to a miss next game. Derek Walleye picks up Sure Hands, and a lot of free agents pickups right before the end of the season. Notably, we don't have a trade or acquisition deadline. Victoria Valancourt and Tina Turnmeon. We're gonna have to get some of these names. We need someone vetting these players. Anyway, 2 skate runners.
There has been some this week.
Yeah, we misspoke. The other Lawrence was actually Sheriff Ferrigno, the source blocker. So
unsurprisingly, paper was not filled out properly would
Yeah.
submit to the league offices. But with all the turmoil going in the offices right now, it doesn't surprise me.
Yep, it's a strange world we live in. But anyway, that's the SCLSU Mud Claws. The Slam Diego Chargers lose Mika Gash Ardwick and Jaw Basham, two big pieces going into week 10. But they've bolstered the defenses, picking up Filthy Lad, the Unchained Troll, and Volt, Little Train James, a goblin. So looking to meet Sire Reginald and try to play his own game in week 10. The Vermin Skulkers had a bit of a rough go. They've lost Scoom Zoom, Clash Claws, and Scotch Claw Chewer. However, they do pick up Block on Claw Chewer, Kick on Scattershot, and picked up a few Clan Rats, Tiny Cody and Stuart Big. So they know they're in playoffs. So whether or not those three players are severely injured or just kind of, sitting the bench, getting healthy for playoffs, remains to be seen. But they'll have them back for the quarterfinals, and that's all that matters. All right, and then the Wildwood EU, Walnut Moss picks up Wrestle, but they lose Bark to a miss next game. Okay, now let's talk about matches. We are knotted all back up. Tanaka and Dimitri right in line, and I think the equalizer was Dimitri calling that perfect score for Slam Diego, the 3-0. He was the only one to call it, and that gave him the extra point to pop right up. So it's kind of a two-horse race, but we'll see how it all shakes out. We've got one more week, and it's rivalry week. So let's talk rivalries. We've got the Matriarchs. We've got the Rampage. Matriarchs looking to win the Blood Division with a win. Or if the Brainwave Blitzers tie or lose, they get that number 1 spot. However, they're not too upset either way. They get the number 2 with a tie or loss and a Brainwave Blitzers win. However, the Rampage, they're looking for number 4 spot. That's the only spot in which they get in. They can do it with a win and a Wildwood loss. They can do it with a tie and a Wildwood loss. Since they're both knotted up at the same amount of points, they just have to exceed the points. However, there's also like 30 other combinations in which they can do this. This is not all extensive, but if they both post the same result, in which they end up with, they both get a win, they both get a tie, they both lose, and Rothlegion has a +9 touchdown casualty amount over Wildwood, or a +8 touchdown casualty and a +3 differential, or +8 total touchdown casualty, +2 touchdown casualty differential, and a +11 touchdown casualties in divisional play, which this is divisional, so they would have to essentially be +11 generally. Or if there's a weird world where they meet all of those tiebreakers, they just have to make sure Wildwood doesn't get 2 kills or more than 2 kills, so that way they beat them. If they do all of that and then somehow Wildwood gets 2 kills, then they're gonna have to play Dungeon Bowl. So not incredibly likely, but it is fun to think that there is a world where this thing goes all the way down to final tiebreaker. Anyway,
I've never had to use the rule,
written,
but
with Rule 5 as a bit of a half joke, because I don't think anyone in the commissioner's office believed it would ever get that far. The fact that we could potentially see a tiebreaker 4 theoretically happen is bizarre to me, but here we are.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, it's not, I don't think super likely, because there's that always consideration where you both have to have the same result, but you would have to have at least 10 more events. So I don't know in a world in which that happens.
Turn into a pitch clearing game for the Rampage that they somehow still don't win.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I mean, hey, anything's possible. But anyway, I wanted to add an extra part to these matchups, and we'll get to the picks in just a moment. But in the middle, you see the entire history of these two coaches clashing over the entire history of the NKBBL. So, going all the way back to Season 1, Week 8, the Ashen Isle Blighting defeat the Water Boys 3-1, so that's a point for Rothlegion. In Season 2, they find themselves again as the Underheim Mighty Rats defeat the Paravan Knights. Golden Knights. Yeah. I don't know why I was like, is it Golden Knights? The Paravan Golden Knights 3-0. 2 weeks later, they play again, and Paravan pulls the pulls the punch back with a 3-1 victory over Undheim. Then they don't find each other in season 3, but we fast forward to season 4 in the semifinals. The Undheim Mighty Rats dethrone the New England Matriarchs and end their playoff run short. And then in this season, week 7, as we know, the New England Matriarchs that is not right. They defeat Rothlegion 3-0, not Undheim. So this one's pretty tight. Rothlegion's got the slight advantage, 3-2 in the overall, but within one game. So Tanaka, does New England equalize or does Rothlegion pull ahead?
This is going to be a good game. I think after what happened in week 9 with the Brainwave Blitzers, everyone kind of realized that the Matriarchs can in fact bleed. They can be beaten. You just have to have one of those games. And honestly, at this point for Rothlegion, in order to make the playoffs, they're going to have one of those games anyways. So what I'm looking at when it comes to roster versus roster, the Matriarchs are down their thrower. I know they're not very prolific on the throwing, but their core team are those 6 superstars that are all highly leveled up. Sonya the Dancer should still be cooking, though. I expect her to do well. But Rothlegion, when it comes down to the wire, they were able to do this last season, too, with Undheim. They were able to pull up some much-needed wins, and I think they can potentially do it. However, it is still the Matriarchs, and they want to clinch that 1 seed. So, sadly, I am picking them 2-1 to win over Rothlegion.
All right. Dimitri?
Yeah, I've been saying it from the outset of the season. The Matriarchs are a championship caliber team, and even with the Blitzers definitely getting the best of them in week 9, I still think they're a top end talent. They have a pair of Blitzers who have been able to get business done. This team has played pretty much blow for blow with every team in the league, which isn't super impressive, but they know how to play you blow for blow and come out ahead every time. And I think that's one of their biggest strengths. On the other side, we talked about this the last time they met earlier this season. The Rampage just were not developed and put together enough to even hold a candle to how good the Matriarchs have been this season. I think now here, as we come up at the very end of the regular season, the Rampage finally have some of the pieces they'll need to try and, put a dent in the armor here. This is still a slippery Amazon team that I think is potentially going to be in the chase for a title. And this is a Rampage team that has struggled enough that they're in this inconvenient situation to even make playoffs. With that in mind, I think the Matriarchs are going to take this game 2-1. I honestly would probably want to pick this game going as close as a tie even, but we don't do ties on this broadcast. And
maybe next year.
So to echo Tanaka, I think it is really important that the Matriarchs win this game. They really want that 1 seed. They've been the team out in front this entire time, and only for a slight slip here at the end for the Blitzers to be in striking distance because the Blitzers clawed their way into it. The Matriarchs, they have something to play for still, and I think that's going to be the big thing with all of these Blood Division games we're going to talk about here is every team still has something to play for.
All right, great. Well, since Koba's not with us, he did submit his picks, or his ghostwriter did, I'm not sure. But he also agrees with you two. 2-1 Matriarchs. However, and I want to be clear, because I want to make sure that that this is said explicitly. I make sure I do my picks before I get your guys' in, so that way I have no influence over what you guys decide before I put the presentation together. However, looking at the overalls, I knew I gotta get crazy if I want to catch up. So we're getting crazy here. Give me Rothlegion 2-1. There's always been strange situations. There's always, not always, but there's been seasons where the Rothlegion coach has found himself up against the wall, and he's every year found a way to get in. And I think week 10, when it seems unlikely, maybe the year that he finds himself sneaking in yet again with a win here and potentially another Wildwood tie is kind of the way I see it going. But that remains to be seen. All right. The Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers take on the Antekken Kings. So both teams technically still in. One path is easier than the other. For Neuroport, they get the number 1 seed with a win, and if New England loses or ties in their match, I didn't have a chance to map it all out. There's a couple different ways. They are currently in the number 2 spot, and they stay in the number 2 slot with many situations, namely if all three of them, New England and Los Alamos, have the same result, or if New England wins and Los Alamos loses or ties, or if they tie and Los Alamos wins because they had the tiebreaker, or no, sorry, that would be a 3. Anyway, there's a lot of scenarios which they're number 2, but number 3, they can get jumped by Los Alamos if they tie or lose and Los Alamos wins. For the Antecan Kings, they can get in, but they need some help. They got to win first, and then they got to get Wildwood and Rothlegion to lose. So a bit out of their hands, but the only thing they can control is getting that dub today. However, Antecan being one of our rookie coaches, there's not a ton of history between these two rivals, but there was an electric match in season 5 week 4 where Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers defeated Antecan 4-0. So look forward to seeing the rematch with these two. Tanaka, how do you see it going?
Well, I want to start by giving my flowers to the Kings coach. I think especially after the first couple weeks, especially that first week where a Tomb Guardian was slain by the Mudclaws, a lot of people were expecting a really rough rookie year and probably not a playoff hopeful after all was said and done. But here we are in week 10 talking about a win with some help and in. But a lot of rookie coaches haven't had that happen. So honestly, a lot of props to them for managing to get that tie at the very least. They were close to getting a win. I mean, Los Alamos did have to claw their way back up to a tie. So the fact that they were still able to get some form of divisional point to keep their hopes alive speaks volumes for how they've done from start of the season to end of the season. So again, props to them for making it this far. That said, the Brainwave Blitzers just blew the doors off the Matriarchs, and previously they blew the doors off the Kings 4-0. I think one thing I don't think we mentioned right away is the inducement package. In this match, I believe it's 135. If I can do math, let me pull up.
113, 14. It should be
170. Sorry, I'm looking at a different match. Yeah, so 170. So not a bad package, but not a huge one. Context for the Los Alamos game, they had roughly 390, I want to say, TV, and that helped them get Drakenborg, who essentially made them have 5 big guys. And let me tell you, 5 big guys is scary. They're not going to have it. They're not going to have it for this match. It's unheard of unless you're playing ogres. But Joe's not here. That said, still 4 big guys, a little bit more development, but the Brainwave Blitzers are on a molten hot hand. And I think with the lower inducement package, their chances of pulling an upset here are a lot lower. Again, props to them for doing so well this season, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next season. But I think their regular season ends here 4-0 again for the Brainwave Blitzers.
All right. Dimitri, what's your take?
I think it's going to go a little bit differently. I don't want to recurse too heavily on everything Tanaka just mentioned about the Kings, turning their season around to put themselves in a position to potentially steal a playoff spot. Coincidentally, the only time a rookie coach, barring the first season for obvious reasons, has ever made playoffs is the coach of the Brainwave Blitzers when they won the division back in the 3rd season. So it's, completely possible to have those kinds of seasons, dragging themselves up. Still no wins, but those 3 ties have proven to be enough to keep them right here in the thick of the race. The biggest thing I want to praise the Kings for, and I've said this on the last couple of broadcasts, is they definitely have learned how to control the ball. And while I do have the Blitzers winning this game 3-1, that's the big thing, is the Kings are going to put up a score. I genuinely think the Kings are going to take one of these drives and absolutely lock down the field and just waltz into the end zone, as they seem to have done a couple of times this season. I think it's going to be Brainwave Blitzers for probably 90% of this game still, and that is why it's still a big 3-1 win that's going to get them into, a hot hand in these playoffs. But I do want to call out, especially knowing the Kings got the 4 big guys thing going on, the Blitzers have had a couple down games, and do not be surprised if this is one of those games where these vampires are, a little worse for the wear, and all of a sudden the Kings might be looking to cause some kind of upset. I'm not going to say it's a full-blown win, but this could be an instance where the Blitzers lose track of that 2nd seed. It's just a matter of what Neuroport we're going to see.
All right, Koba shares your sentiments. Although I've noticed Tanaka's got 4 touchdowns, Dimitri's got 3. Koba said Give me 2. A little bit of a tighter match. So it only makes sense that I flip the script yet again. I told you I got to get wild. I think this is the week where it all comes together and the Tomb Kings get it done. The Kings win 2-1. All right. The Wildwood Eldar United versus the Los Alamos Aliens. So we've got a couple seasons of history between these two. Back in season 4, they first met, and the Gloomstalker Dragonaires managed to start the series of upsets that would lead to Los Alamos missing the playoffs with a 2-0 victory. And then earlier this year, week 5, they drew, unsurprisingly for Wildwood, 2-2 against the Los Alamos Aliens. So the matchup's tight between the two, but there's a lot to play for. So Wildwood is looking at that number 4 seed. It's the only place they can sneak in. They get in if they win and Rothlegion ties or loses. They also get in with a tie and a Rothlegion loss. And then all of those crazy extraneous scenarios and tiebreakers that we mentioned with the Rothlegion, you just flip them. And that's how Wildwood gets in every other scenario. On the flip side, it's a little bit more cut and dry. Los Alamos Alien can jump up to the number 2 spot with a win, and Neuroport tying or losing. And even if they tie or lose, they're still sitting at the number 3 spot. So they know their floor and their ceiling pretty easily with this last game. But Tanaka, who takes this one?
Oh, buddy. Okay.
And why is it a tie?
Okay, so my pick is a tie, 2-2 tie. That's what I sent in, by the way.
I know you did.
It's a 2-2 tie.
I took your.
I know. I was hoping you would actually put it up to be it funny, but no. It can't end in a tie. It just can't.
It will.
It really can't. I mean, I watched the VOD. Buckner's a great coach, jumping right in, getting the hang of things, and being in the playoff hunt both last season and this season. He's doing great things. But listen here, you little shit. I'm coming for you. You hear me? I'm coming for you. I remember week 9 of season 4. I was this close to making playoffs. So even though I'm in, I still want to crush your head in. So I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, buddy.
This is why we love Rivalry Week.
Yeah, no. Like when I got drawn into the rivalry for Wildwood, I was pumped because I'm already locked in as a rival, man. You ruined my season 4, okay? So I haven't beaten you, but I will today. It's going to be a 2-1 victory, but in reality, it's probably going to be a 2-2 tie. So good luck tonight, Buckner. Even though I'm in, I'm still going to play my heart out and try and crush your hopes and dreams. So
sweet.
Good luck.
Love to see it. All right, Dimitri, how's this one shake out?
I wasn't prepared to break character this hard. All right, so on the flip side, that upset that finished out season 4 was much to the boon of me because it got me to the finals.
Yep.
It did. All right, with all that in mind, Dimitri here, this is going to be a very close game again, as we mentioned many a time before. The Wildwood is now set the league record for ties in a single season with 5. Do not be surprised in the slightest that this game does end in a tie. That aside, this is a Wildwood team, and I've said this the past 3 weeks, that is potentially the most well-developed team that just doesn't win games in league history. They're going to be very good, and they're going up against a long-developed Aliens team on the other side of the pitch that has finally put together that playoff campaign season. Tanaka said it, this is where the Aliens really want to finally get that big win to say that they can beat Bucknachek and, at least lay claim to saying, hey, we have one on you now. But I don't think that's going to happen. Wildwood's got the pressure knowing that Rothlegion is right behind them still after they played to a draw last week in a game that neither of them wanted to admit they wanted to have in a draw. They wanted someone to win that game. No one did. So Wildwood still has, a master of their own destiny right now by just winning this game. And I think they're going to do it. I'm taking Wildwood EU 2-1 over the Aliens to slam the door and say we are a playoff team.
All right. Koba shares your sentiment, 2-1. And I thought I was being slightly contrarian. But I'm going to have to tip the scales. 2-1 Wildwood. Yeah, like you said, I think the pressure's on for one team and not so much the other. And I think when after all of these draws and all of this back and forth with Wildwood, I think when it finally comes down to brass tacks, they're going to find a way to get it done. This team's hungry, and I think they're going to eat week 10. All right, the San Fran Caesars Legion take on the Orlando Orcas in the Irrelevant Bowl. Both coaches unfortunately eliminated, so this one's just for pride. With Orcas being a new coach, they only have one rivalry match between them. However, we saw San Fran defeat the Orcas 3-0 back in week 7. Tanaka, who takes this bottom of the bowl division matchup?
Buddy, the lowest of stakes match. I voted for this one to be the stream of the week just because knowing Ivan, knowing these coaches, it would have been just a laugh out riot. But we have bigger fish to fry, and we'll talk about those matches. But man, I'm gonna say it. I'm rooting for an upset here. I don't want the Orcas to get the wooden spoon this season. And I think with San Fran getting some critical injuries, especially to Dr. Zayas, their offensive capabilities have been slowed just a bit. And the fact that they only lost to the Mudclaws by 1 score shows that the Orcas, they've gotten the development, they've had the time. Although they're out of the playoff race, they still have a chance to get a win. And I think they're going to do it. I'm giving the Orcas a 1-0 victory over the San Fran.
That's crazy. Let's go.
No wooden spoon for you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Dimitri, hit me with it.
Look, man, I know that as the season's gone on, we've wanted more and more underdogs to win. And I think that's the natural development when you have a group of friends in a room, is sometimes you just want to see the guy who's down on his luck pick up a good game. And absolutely tons of credit to Walker, the coach of the Orlando Orcas, who has absolutely been dragged through the mud, going 0-9 up to this point. And we've only had one 0-10 season in league history. Coincidentally, that's Ivan. But, Tanaka, I guess, just picked up my script and said, this is my script now, because I share exactly the same sentiments. And mostly to the point that San Fran is down 3 of their most important players. Dr. Zayas and I believe it's Gordy are both out, and that is their entire engine. And if it turns into just big strength 4 pieces slapping each other, I have to give the advantage to the Orcas in that situation. So with that in mind, taking a season of experience and development to get here, I'm picking the Orcas, and I'm going 2-1.
All right. Koba disagrees, unsurprisingly. He's got the repeat 3-0. But again, remember, like I said, I finalize my picks before you guys send them, so that way there's no bias or no gamesmanship. I thought I was being crazy. And then I see all of these Orcas picks roll in. I love to see it. Give me 1-0 Orcas. It's gonna happen. Get your first win, Orlando. Crazy stuff. All right. And our premiere match, what you are going to see later tonight. And for the love of Nuffle, don't miss it, because it's gonna be great. The Skulkers.
This is the definition of rivalry week.
This is rivalry week. This is why I wanted to pull together every matchup, because this is where it becomes a true rivalry. Before we get into that, the Vermin Skulkers, they lock in that number 2 seed with a win or a tie. They're number 3 with a loss. Now, this is pretty cut and dry, because the Skulkers and the Mudclaws are the 2 and 3 right now, respectively. So their matchup against each other is very important for seeding. For the SCLSU side, they're the number 2 with a win, number 3 with a tie or a loss, and a Guttersburg tie or loss. And they can actually slip to number 4 if they lose and the Guttersburg Rebels win. But let's break down why this is the rivalry which we choreographed after a random draw. So, both newer coaches, Season 4, Week 10, Vermin Skulkers, SCLSU Mudclaws, they match up for the first time ever, ends in a 1-1 draw. Okay, great. The seed is planted. The rivalry has started. No true victor yet, right? So let's move over to the Summer Sevens League, because it doesn't even take place in the Northern Kingdoms League proper. This battle goes across formats. We get into Summer Sevens. We get into the winner's semifinals. And the Vermin Skulkers and the Riley Rippers, coached by the SCLSU Mudclaws coach, end in a 2-2 draw that goes into overtime with no score and goes to kicks. the Skulkers destroy them in the kicks and progress to the finals. In that same Summer Sevens, the Rippers claw their way back up to the grand finals and beat the Vermin Skulkers 2-1. Now, with the way that we had the bracket, if the winner from the losers bracket wins, then they had to play again because it was true double elimination. So the double elimination match happens, and the Riley Rippers do it again 2-1 to hoist the crown for our Summer Sevens championship. And we fast forward to this season 5, week 4. The Vermin Skulkers equalize the overall rivalry scoreboard with a routing 4-1. So these two teams are knotted up. Each has won 2 times. They've drawn 1 time. And who is going to get the lead here? Tanaka, hit me with it.
Rivalry week.
Rivalry
week. All right.
I think that word is giving me a stroke. So I will admit myself to the apothecary after this recording.
It's all good, man. Okay, I'm just going to start off with this side. Who thought giving the Skulkers inducement money was a good idea?
Oof. Good point.
Just bear with me. One other thing. We haven't really talked about it or touched on it too much in the previous matchups. I will bring it up here. For all the teams that have essentially already clinched, there is a very real scenario where if a game is out of hand, they will play more protectively, more to the chest, and not saying giving up a match, but saying like, all right, look, I'm getting my face crushed in a bit. I'm going to try and protect my key players for the actual matches coming up. I'm not saying that'll happen, but in this particular match, it might. I think both teams are looking to make a deep and healthy playoff run. I do think this match is going to be a lot tighter than last time. Last time it was a 4-1. I know there was a blitz involved. I know that early season Skulkers, they got a couple blitzes that really ran up the score. I don't know if they'll get one here, but with inducement money and the fact that both these teams have clinched, I think it'll be a bit tighter, but I still think the Skulkers will win. I'm going to give the Skulkers a 3-2 victory over the Mudclaws.
All right. Dimitri.
All right. This is the big rivalry, as mentioned. We're going to get another broadcast of this. And as mentioned, we saw them in week 4's broadcast as well. Go watch that back if you're looking for something to do before tonight's broadcast to get a little coverage on why this is such a hotly contested matchup. And the Skulkers, as Tanaka mentioned, were red hot in the front half of this season. That's why they ran away with it 4-1. I do think that they are playing a little protectively. They're bringing in some extra bodies with all that extra cash they've earned this season. I think more than anything, to have reliable bodies that are going to get chewed up by this Mudclaws line, because the Mudclaws, I think, are being slept on for how good they've looked in the last couple of weeks. I mean, a close game with the Matriarchs in week 8, but defining wins over the Rebels in week 7, and then the Orcas this past week, in the sense that this team can take a bit of a beating and still just kind of trudge forward. And again, the Skulkers, they had that red-hot start to the season, but since then, I think they've tapered off pretty significantly, actually. They had the blowout win in week 6 against the Caesars Legion, 8-0, league record touchdowns. Nothing could stop them. And then the next week, they had to go on broadcast and lose their first game to the Charges in a close 2-1 game. And that's kind of where the Skulkers started to lose momentum. They bounced back against the bottom of the table Kings, but then they end up playing to a draw against the Rebels last week. And I think the Skulkers are finally hitting those bumps in the road. The Mudclaws, if anyone is a team that looks to try and win this game, that isn't just a dominant team like the Matriarchs or the Chargers have been this season, I think they're the ones that are capable of stepping up to the plate, and they know how to trudge forward. The Skulkers are going to play that protective game of Blood Bowl that Tanaka mentioned, I think, at the end of the day, because they know they need to preserve themselves for these playoffs. There's not a whole lot of worry in them whether or not they're the 2 or the 3 seed. But I do think the Skulkers are still going to win this game. Longshank Stilltail, regular season MVP, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, he's still just 1 touchdown away from setting the regular season, the single season record. And he's definitely going to be part of the equation here. It's just a matter of how safe the Skulkers are going to have to play to do it. I have a final score of 3-2, just like Tanaka. I think the Mudclaws are going to have that close game. And I think with the temptation of knowing that they can be a 2 seed and get a more favorable matchup in that first round of the playoffs is something that's appealing to the Mud Claws. And again, every team is playing for something this week that still has any playoff implication. So it's going to be a very close game. I heavily implore you, and I always say, hey, make sure you watch tonight's featured game. It's going to be a good one. And I can say that every week. This rematch, more than ever, with stakes as part of the equation. Watch tonight's game. I hope the Mud Claws prove me wrong, because I've only become increasingly more high on the Mud Claws as the season's gone on, and that's saying something with how good the Skulkers have been.
Yep, I gotta agree with you there. Tanaka is calling the replay 4-1 Skulkers. However, I've got a slightly different take here. So I think for me, it's like you said, the back half of the season has been a little tough for the Skulkers, and I think it might catch up to them just a bit here. It's hard for me to believe that the team that's been all gas, no brakes all season is going to turn off the gas here. But maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I have it still a very close shootout match. There's skinks running, there's gutter runners running. Give me 3-2 in favor of the Mud Claws. All right, and the Rebels take on the Charges, two OGs that have played each other a lot. Out of all the rivalries, these two have had the most match history between them when you add in all of the tournaments and summer leagues and all of those things. So the Guttersburg Rebels are in no matter what they do at number 4. However, if they win and the Mud Claws lose, they jump up to that number 3 seed. And like we said, for the Charges, they're already bowl division champions. They know where they're going to be. At this point, it's about the Coil Cup with week 10. They take away all that hardware with a win, so they're going to look to do that. But these two coaches go all the way back to season 1, week 2. The Guttersburg Game Stealers, not the Rebels, lose 3-1 to the Queen City Kings. Then the rematch happens in that semifinals, a miracle run for the Guttersburg Game Stealers. As old heads will know, this was their run to the first ever NKBBL championship, in which they took away the trophy. They defeat Queen City 2-1 in an insane overtime playoff match. Next season, the Guttersburg Game Stealers are back. However, the Queen City coach has picked up a new team. The Jotunheim Valkyries defeat the Game Stealers 2-0. Then there is a long gap where these two coaches don't see each other for majority of the next 2 seasons. But there was a lot of tournaments and there was a lot of summer league play that happens. So, and bear with me because I should remember all these names, but I may stumble on a few, so we'll get there. The Summer Sevens tournament won in the 3rd round. Dustin's Dirtbags lose to the Chewable Bats 1-0. Then we fast forward to the Summer Sevens tournament 3, also in round 3. Ham ? Gets defeated by the Black Forest Saplings 1-0. And like we had mentioned, the Summer Sevens League, which had such a massive rivalry burgeoning between the Rippers and the Skulkers, the Sulphur Lake City Demons match up against the Grim-Cincinnati Werecats in the winter semifinals, and the Werecats take it 2-1. Then we go to season 5, week 3, which you guys saw on stream as the Slam Diego Chargers defeat Guttersburg 3-0. And then we had a holiday Gutter Bowl tournament, in which they also met again in round 3. Name a more iconic duo than these two coaches in round 3 tournament matches, as the Chinsai Moonshiners defeat the Golden Knights. That's what it is. The Golden Knights 2-1. So overall, I do want to make a note of this. Overall, obviously the Slam Diego coach is up pretty handily on the Guttersburg, but let's make something extremely clear. The Guttersburg Rebels coach is a 2-time champion. They're an amazing coach, and all of these matchups are either a tier 3 team or basically a tier 3 team with Black Orcs being played. I believe Black Orcs is Ham, Black Orcs is the Golden Knights, and the only odd one is the Sulphur Lake City Demons, which was a Norse something. It was a Secret League Norse team, but it was against the Grim Cincinnati team, which was a nasty Werecats team. So, like I said, this is not prescriptive of the rivalry. It is always tight, and this is way closer than it looks. But enough of my yapping. Tanaka, who takes the edge on this match?
Well, I'll keep it brief. Slam Diego, Bowl Division champs. They have nothing to play for besides just racking up some SPP and
Coil Cup.
Coil Cup. That's one thing. We didn't really mention that too much. The Coil Cup is still very much in contention, especially if I believe the Chargers do end up losing this. But regardless, they're not going to go easy on them, and I think they're going to give them a couple lumps.
Yep.
I really don't think they'll ever beat what happened way back in week 3. Yeah, that week 3 stream was brutal. I watched it. I begged Josh to switch dice. He said no. I refuse.
Yeah.
And got blown out 0-3. And that happens. There's games like that. I think he'll fare a lot better, especially now that he's got kind of a groove going on, especially holding the Skulkers to a tie. They definitely want that better seeding, but it's a stunty team, like mostly stunty players, with not a huge TV difference versus an Orc team that's firing on all cylinders and the casualty leading squad in the entire league. So I do think they'll make it out of this match, but I don't think they're going to win it. I think it's going to be Chargers 3-1.
Alrighty, Dimitri, what's your vision?
Someone's got to be the guy to flip the script, and it's not going to be Brand today.
Nah.
This is a Guttersburg team that, in very similar sentiments to the Rothlichin team, there's a team that knows how to pull out the stops. If there's a team that knows how to find a way to win a game when he absolutely needs to win a game, it's Guttersburg. The TV difference is not huge. Like, usually the go-to play is if there's someone that can utilize a good TV package, it's Guttersburg, but they don't get that. They have a relatively underdeveloped squad. Underworld, you kind of need a little bit of that sauce. They do have a completely healthy team. I do want to acknowledge that. And they have known to be slippery with those pieces when they've been called on just using what's on roster for them. And again, every team is playing for something. Slam Diego has the chance to walk home with their first Coil Cup since going all the way back to that first season title that Queen City took. So there's no reason for Slam Diego to completely take their foot off the gas. But this is a Guttersburg team that knows how to win games. I'm taking the upset. Rebels 2, Slam Diego 1.
Let's go.
Guttersburg can sneak into that third-seeded game. And I definitely think there's a world where they would want to be the 3rd seed over the 4 seed. And that gets into some weird semantics of the equation, but at the end of the day, these are two teams that want to win games. And I can say that for most teams. Usually we're not talking about trying to manipulate where you are in the standings. That's a very convoluted way of going about things. This is a Rebels team that thinks they can win the game. I have every reason to believe that if something off the wall happens, it's going to be right here at the end.
Yep. And they're not on stream, so
that helps.
That's huge.
All right. Koba's got it going 2-1 for the Chargers, and I gotta agree with him, but that's just my bias. I have not once chosen against the Chargers. They're still the only team to not take an L, so I'm just gonna say that they continue to get it done here and do 2-1. But like I said, there's always that chance because Guttersburg is dangerous. Even though there's not a massive inducement package, they do have some tricks they can pull. And you know, if we're gonna see the upset, I think there's no better one to pull it off than our championshipist team, or most championshipist. I don't know, I'm making shit up, but if anyone's gonna do it, it's the guy with the most trophies. Rebels, I think, are gonna put on an absolute show, but in the end, I think the Chargers are feeling pretty good going into playoffs. Okay, well, that will do it. A little bit longer this week, but I felt we needed to do Rivalry Week the most justice we can because it's an exciting time and we're getting ready to get into playoffs. So it's a great way to do our final regular season Wartscenter big. Anything from the desk before we let you take a break before watching the rematch of Vermin Skulkers and SCLSU Mudclaws?
Rivalry week.
Rivalry
week.
Good luck, everyone.
I'm firing
This
my
must be
voice
what it
coach.
feels- This must be what Koba feels like on his bender right now.
And we gotta find him.
We'll find him for playoffs, I'm sure.
He wasn't at Burning Bone still.
Yeah, I don't know.
He is somewhere in the vicinity of all time.
That's pretty far from
Theoretically.
our studio desk, which
It is. It's the other side of the mountains.
Yeah, if you get Koba out west, it's kind of hard to get him back. You know, they actually made a movie, a Cabal Vision special. Koba Goes West,
Which is weird because where he's from, west is just the ocean.
Yeah, it's a swimming movie. Anyway,
Must have been direct to DVD.
Direct to DVD.
Anyway, we've dilly-dallied enough. Check out that game tonight. Thank you all for watching Wartscenter, and goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.